Martin Luther King and the Civil Rights Movement. Childhood. Martin Luther King Jr. was born in Atlanta, Georgia, in a large 12-room house of his parents on January 15, 1929. His grandparents also lived in the house. He was born during a time when black people did not have the same rights that they have today. ML, as he was called as a boy, first experienced racial discrimination when the father of his white childhood friend refused to let ML play with his son. This was hard for young ML to understand. One time when ML and his father were shopping for shoes in the store, they were asked to move to the back of the shoe store to try on their shoes. The white customers could stay in the front of the store. ML and his dad left without buying anything. These early incidents left a deep impression on him. Another time in high school, Martin Luther and his teacher were riding on a bus. When the bus filled up with people, the driver asked them to stand up and let two white people take their seats instead. It was the law. Martin Luther King Jr. saw the injustice of it, and he never forgot that incident. When he was 15 years old, he entered Morehouse College. After 2 years in school, he decided he could best help others by becoming a minister. He became assistant minister of the Ebenezer Baptist Church when his father was minister. Soon after he graduated from college, he was only 19 years old. Martin Luther King, MLK, then went to a seminary school to learn how to become a minister. Here, he began to study the teaching of Mahatma Gandhi from the country of India. Gandhi told people not to fight, but to protest peacefully. This is how India won independence from the British Empire. MLK liked this idea of non-violent resistance. He also worked on his PhD at Boston University. There, he met Coretta Scott, who later became his wife. When he graduated from Boston University, he became the minister of a Baptist church in Montgomery, Alabama. Blacks and whites were segregated in Alabama at this time. Black people attended different schools and sat in separate sections on buses. Sometimes blacks would be forced to stand on a bus even though there were empty seats in the white section on the front of the bus. One day, on December 1st, 1955, Miss Rosa Parks, a black woman, refused to give up her seat for a white person on a bus. The police were called and Rosa was arrested. This event led to protests all over America and helped start the Civil Rights Movement when thousands of people began to demand equal rights for African Americans. Martin Luther King and others started a boycott of the buses. Boycott means they would refuse to ride the buses until they received fair treatment. Black people stopped riding the buses, and the big bus companies lost the money. Instead of riding buses, black people walked, rode bicycles, and rolled in carpools to get to work. The boycott lasted a year. In December of 1956, the Supreme Court ruled that bus segregation was unlawful. The boycott worked. Then, black students also began to organize sit-ins at lunch counters in restaurants that were for white people only. These students went to these restaurants to sit at the tables and counters for a long time without leaving. They also did wade-ins, where they went into the water of all-white swimming pools. These were all non-violent types of protests to show that black Americans should be treated equally as white Americans. Peaceful marches were organized and people were arrested because they were joining them. Even little children were sprayed with water hoses and arrested. On August 28, 1963, Martin Luther King and other leaders led a march into Washington, D.C. Over 200,000 people marched from the Washington Monument to the Lincoln Memorial. It was here that Dr. King delivered his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. Because of Martin Luther King and other civil rights supporters, a law called the Civil Rights Act was passed in 1964. This law made segregation illegal and prohibits discrimination. This law made it illegal to treat not only black Americans, but all Americans unfairly based on their race, color, religion, sex, or nationality. In 1964, MLK was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in Norway. he gave away his $54,000 prize money to other civil rights groups. Dr. King was put in jail 30 times for his resistance. Some people even tried to kill him. Sadly, on April 4, 1968, a gunman murdered him in Memphis, Tennessee. In 1986, U.S. Congress passed a law establishing a national holiday, Martin Luther King Day. This day occurs on the third Monday of every January. On this day, people remember the great leadership of Martin Luther King and the positive change he brought to the United States.